This video is on absolute value. So I'm going to switch over to a document camera here. I'm going to start with the first two, or the only two, I guess, questions on the Google form. And I'll walk through those, and I've got a couple other examples. So here we have it. The two problems in the Google form. And I'm going to do this one. Before I do the second one, I'm going to do another question, and then I'll kind of fill in. Two important ideas, two important concepts with absolute value is that absolute value, these vertical bars, are asking how far from zero is it? But before we can ask that question, here's the other important part. Before we can ask how far from zero is it, we have to get it down to one number. So these absolute value bars, they're a form of grouping. It's kind of like parentheses. So we need to do that first. Negative 17 minus 23. If I'm starting at negative 17 and I'm going to go less positive 23, so I'm going to go more towards the negatives. I'm starting with negative 17 and I'm taking away positives. You can think about it with money. Starting at $17 in the hole, and now I'm spending $23 more on my credit card. So I'm going to have negative 40. Those absolute value bars are still there. All I've done is I've combined what's inside the absolute value bars here. So negative 17 take away 23 is going to be negative 40. Now that I have it down to one number, I can ask how far from zero is it? I can apply these absolute value bars. Negative 40 is 40 away from zero. Distance is always positive. There's no negatives on a ruler. And so the absolute value will always be positive because the absolute value is a distance. How far from zero is it? Before I do the other one from the Google form, I want to look at this one right here. And again, we've got an absolute value with more than one thing inside the absolute value bars. So I'm going to do this grouping first. Let's see, 7 minus 4 is 3. The absolute value bars are still there, remember. All I've done is simplified what's inside of those absolute value bars, kind of like parentheses. And this 3 is still on the outside. Just like with parentheses, if you have a number outside of these brackets, outside of these vertical bars, it means multiplication. So that multiplication symbol is not there. It's not written there, but it's effectively a multiplication problem. However, I still can't multiply yet. I need to apply this absolute value first. The absolute value of 3 is 3 away from 0. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. Now that we've applied the absolute value, I can multiply. 3 times 3 is 9. The reason I wanted to do this problem first, before I did this question up here, is because of that negative sign out in front. Kind of like this 3 was out in front here, and that meant 3 times whatever this was. 3 times the absolute value of 3. A negative, it isn't written there, but it's kind of like having a negative 1. It acts like a negative 1. So it isn't written there. I'm not going to write it in all of the pieces here. I'll take that 1 away. But I pretend this is a negative 1. I think that'll help you. So I'm still going to do what's inside the absolute value first. There's some grouping here. Negative 7 plus 12 is going to be 5, I believe. Again, if I'm $7 in the hole, I have $7 negative on my balance. But I put $12 in, I'd have a balance of $5 over. If it's 7 below 0 and it gets 12 degrees warmer, it's going to be 5 degrees above 0. However you want to conceptualize negative 7 plus 12. And that negative is still out front. The absolute value of 5, I'm going to ignore this negative for a minute. I just need to take the absolute value of 5. So I'm going to apply the absolute value. 5 is 5 away from 0. So that 5 is right there. Again, not the negative, but the absolute value of 5 is 5. The negative is still there, so it is negative 5. You could think about this again as negative 1 times 5. So that's like negative 1 times 5, which is still negative 5. So however you want to view it, if you just want to view it as a negative, it's negative 5. If you want to view it as negative 1 times something, we still get negative 5. So the answer is negative 5 for both of those reasons. I'm going to do these a little bit faster. If there's more than one set of absolute values, apply that absolute value before you do any adding or subtracting. There's only one number inside all of these absolute value bars, so I don't need to do any grouping first. Absolute value of negative 6 is 6. Absolute value of 7 is 7. Absolute value of 15 is 15. The adding and subtracting is still there, but now that we've applied those absolute value bars, we're just going about our regular old adding and subtracting. 6 plus 7 is going to be what, 13? 13 take away 15 is going to be negative 2. This last one, we do have more than one thing inside the absolute value bars. The 17 and the 64 do not have absolute value bars. So they're fine the way they are. They're just 17 and 64. I do need to do this arithmetic, and maybe I should have picked numbers that I could do easily in my head, but let's see, 36, I think this is negative 36. 20 plus 30 is 50. No, that's wrong. 33, that seems right. 20 plus 30 is 50, 3 plus 3 is 6. Yes, there we go, negative 33. There we go. So I added up in my head is how I've tried to figure that one out. The absolute values are still there. When you do that subtraction, we've gotten it down to one number, but we have not applied the absolute value bars yet. Absolute value of negative 33, positive 33. Distance is always positive. Absolute value will always be positive. Now I can do my adding and subtracting. Let's see, 17 plus 33 is going to be 40, 50. 50 take away 64. I'm definitely going to be negative because if I have $50 and I spend $64, I'm going in the hole by $14. Just because there are absolute value bars in the problem doesn't mean your final answer will necessarily be positive. Just means that part of it will end up being a positive piece. But the rest of it could go from there. Hopefully that helped. If you want some more examples, make sure that you ask. I can find some more for you. If you haven't done all of these yet, this was posted as our example problems. Make sure you do all of those. The key was posted on D2L as well. Let me know if you want more help with those.